Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs cast, live from the Wolf Den. I'm Chris.
And I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about apparently a new stadium location. Big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to join us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about the group and to find your local chapter. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.
Right, today about your Kansas City Chiefs, we're going to be talking a little bit about stadium move potentially.
Yeah. This might be much ado about nothing, but this is what qualifies for news in the NFL these days. We are, of course, presented by Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth lighting, and coordination services. Visit them at completewedo.com. All right, so Chris, the news that is causing ripples in the Chiefs news space. I don't think that normal people that watch the NFL really have any kind of clue that this is coming up, which is probably an indication of really what we're getting into, but there's not a whole lot else going on right now. So let's talk about the rumors. And this came from an official statement from Mark Donovan, right?
Yeah, he mentioned it. Yep.
Yep. So essentially, what Mark Donovan said is that he's been approached by developers for a potential space for a stadium in Kansas City. And have you seen anything that really elaborates where they might be talking about, or is it just in Kansas and that's really the trigger word?
No, I mean I've heard that it's very vague at this point, but the Kansas side has been mentioned, um, as far as I know. But I mean, the lease of Arrowhead is up in 9 years, and I mean, this actually probably is the right time to start this conversation. Um, I don't, I don't think they would move if they do before 2031, but it's something that I've been hearing about. Really, I wouldn't say I've actually heard anything about it. It's just, some of the voices that I listen to on the radio, they at least mention it. They say, don't be surprised if you hear about this.
So let me ask you this. When the latest renovations happened, it was all in the Truman Sports Complex, and the K renovations and the Arrowhead renovations, that all happened at the same time, right? Was that all on one bill? Were you living in Kansas City when that went through?
Yeah, I think Kaufman was a year ahead of Arrowhead. So Kaufman got done, I think, in 2009,
Okay.
the beginning of 2009, and then Arrowhead got done right before the 2010 season.
Okay, but was the funding bill addressing both at the same time, or those two separate issues that they addressed?
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, because I've never lived in Kansas City. I mean, I grew up in Hayes. I've lived in Denver. I've lived in Wisconsin and a handful of other places in really short periods of time. But I've always been close enough and understood what was happening. And what I recall when that whole thing came up was the funding bill was for everything in joint, but the moving parts were, is Kaufman going to stay or is it going to move downtown? And so that was one of the big decisions that had to be made. And then the next thing was, are you going to renovate Arrowhead? Are you going to tear it down and build something new? Or are you going to renovate Arrowhead and put a roof over the top of it? Am I remembering that incorrectly, or did I kind of sitting on the outside sidelines get all those details from a high level roughly right?
No, I remember that plan. Yeah, it was a shared, I guess, moving roof for both stadiums.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that may have been about 20 years ago, I think, when that was at least proposed.
Okay. But it would have come to fruition sometime in the 2002 to 2008 kind of time frame, and then ended up doing the work, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So in other words, we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 years, and essentially everything's changed and nothing's changed. So we're still talking about the same thing, and the factors that remain are, twofold from my perspective. It's one, is the Royals home where it should be? And two, is Kansas City going to do anything to put the Chiefs on the list for potentially hosting a Super Bowl? Can we agree that those are roughly the issues that we're trying to solve?
Yes, and I would also add hosting the Final Four as well.
Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, that's obviously never happened in an open stadium. And the Final Four has really not been in a basketball arena in many years, right?
Well, I can't remember the last time the Final Four was held in Kansas City. I mean, the most recent time I can remember is in 1988 at Kemper.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think until this weekend, Kansas City has still hosted the most Final Fours, but New Orleans is going to tie Kansas City this weekend.
Yep. But really, for the last 20 to 30 years, they've been doing it in football arenas, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And this really just comes down to simple economics. I mean, a basketball stadium takes up maybe 25% of a football field, and the rest of the field becomes seating. And then you also get the rest of the seating for the football stadium. So you pack as many people in as possible.
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to see a Final Four held in anything smaller than a football stadium again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we can sit here and talk about how much we like or dislike this situation. I mean, it seems to me like it's kind of a reality that football stadiums where every owner in the NFL for that matter is kind of looking at forward thinking. I don't want to say that they're completely abandoning anything of tradition, but they're looking for places that are Super Bowl ready, that can hold events pretty much at the drop of a hat, and it could be the biggest UFC fighter boxing match for pay-per-view. It can be a Final Four, it can be any of that, and that's really where the NFL is looking. And what I think is interesting about this is everybody's getting riled up about the situation, but I agree with the comment you made earlier that 9 years before a lease ends is when you start these conversations. And I mean, literally speaking, when you're talking about billion-dollar projects, I mean, those things don't happen in a short period of time, which means that none of this is getting decided in a week. So we can all maybe calm down a little bit from that perspective. But it also means you have to start these conversations, and just you have to think about this with the expectation that the NFL is going to keep growing at the rate that it is, and that football is going to be 9 years bigger than it is right now, and just recognize things like the Buffalo Bills are getting ready to build a new stadium. So that's really where all this is coming from. And I don't even think that means that anybody from the Chiefs organization is trying to necessarily even put the Missouri residents on notice. It's just hey, somebody made this phone call and we picked it up, and I don't even think there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, not at all. And, it's interesting with the NFL, while, yes, I would say the fanship has increased in size, you can also look at it in a sense that Arrowhead might be a little oversized. I mean, it feels weird to say because it's sold out every week, but I think they are in the top five, if not the top three, as far as capacity goes in
I want
NFL
to say it's
stadiums.
3.
Yeah. And, when I mean, you already see this in the club level, and people complain all the time about the club level about how empty those seats look. It's because there's suites up there. You have the opportunity to not have to sit outside in, inclement weather, or really just outside, period. And I think, as a lot of fans are finding, I mean, it's not cheap to go to a game. It's not cheap to pay for concessions. And there's almost kind of an internal battle in the NFL between, people going to games and preferring to watch them because of that. So, you know, it might not, it might be something behind the fact that, and, I mean, kind of Sporting Kansas City kind of did this. I mean, when they were the Wizards, when they started off, they were playing in Arrowhead, but they were only filling it up to what 10,000 a match. So they end up going out and building Children's Mercy, and that's much more accommodating and easier place to fill. With the Chiefs, maybe they look at shrinking their capacity down to 70,000 or something like that. But that that's another thing that you wouldn't get by keeping it where it is at Truman Sports Complex in all likelihood.
Yeah, and a couple comments that I'll make with that. So first of all, I pulled up the list. So capacity for NFL, and this is before they do any expansion type of stuff, which I'll point out. So MetLife is 82.5, which is where the Giants and Jets play. FedEx, where the Commanders play, Washington football team, so forth, is 82. Lambeau Field, where the Packers play, their latest expansion got them to 81.4. And AT&T, where the Cowboys play, they hosted 100,000 for the Super Bowl they hosted in 2011, but their capacity is 80 before they put that in. And so after that, Gaia Field at Arrowhead Stadium, or GEHA, I think is the proper way to say that, is 76,416, and then Empower Field at Mile High, or Mile High Stadium, is 76,125. So of course we had to do that in expansion and make sure that we're a little bit bigger than our rivals. So
Yes.
so that's the commentary there. When you look at some of the other stadiums that have gone the other way, so Soldier Field is 61.5, and that's after them building that bigger. And so that's
Which
the
is the
smallest one
oldest
right
stadium in the
now.
NFL right now. But yeah.
Exactly. And so that's the one thing that I'll say about Soldier Field is they're actively trying to put something out in the suburbs. So State
Right.
Farm in Glendale, Arizona, where the Cardinals play, is 63.4. Ford Field is 65, which is where the Lions play. But the one that I think is really, really noticeable is Allegiant Stadium, which is brand new, is 65.5 or 65 even. So the Raiders built a new stadium and consciously, and will be holding a Super Bowl and everything else they want to do because they're in Vegas, one at 65. So I think that really speaks to the comment you're making about, do you want to have packed and a waiting list, or do you want to get as many people in as possible? And so that's a philosophical thing that I think we're kind of working with. Thing that I think is interesting about Children's Mercy is that stadium, the way I understand it, was built to the point where you could rip the roof off and put a second level on there anytime you wanted to. And if you look at the big way that European soccer stadiums operate, they'll always have one section on one of the goal lines, and they'll always call that the supporter stands. And it's normally you're going to walk a mile up a single level of stairs if you want to. So you don't have the divided levels. So it's this big expansive thing. And I mean, all the newest soccer stadiums that are being built have that. So Children's Mercy could do that, but you make a really good point, and it's that you try to make the ticket that you're selling be as attractive as possible, and having fewer of them is the easiest way to do that. And you also knocked it out of the park when you make the comment the TV product's gotten great.
It has. Yeah. It's just one of those things. I mean, and I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years if more people would rather go to games than to watch it at home. But I think there are some, just like you pointed out, in Vegas and all these other newer stadiums, I think they're under the belief that it may be better to go with, a smaller capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that at least leaves the possibility for it if they do move away from Truman.
Yep. Yep. So I was making comments on the board for one of my Arrowhead One columns today, and something came up about that, and a lot of it was just based on Chiefs being in the news or not. And so you could look at this as the NFL does a better job than really any entity in the world of keeping itself relevant and keeping itself 365, because there's always something going on. And right now with the Chiefs, I mean, it seems like The dust is settled on the big splashy free agent type of stuff. I mean, the only real rumor kind of floating around is that DK Metcalf could be a potential trade. I don't see that happening. First of all, the Seahawks aren't moving
Not
him.
with Kansas City. Yeah.
Second of all, we're not getting rid of Tyreek Hill's cap hit to take one on that's the exact same. And then third of all, why would DK Metcalf, take a move that wouldn't have a at or above level extension that Hill just took? And if we wanted to do that, we could have just signed the guy that we already had. So that's probably not happening, which means that there's nothing really happening until the draft. I think we have a couple weeks before we start really getting into what we think is going to happen on the draft. So this is our news. And so let me ask you this, because I certainly have some thoughts on this. Football stadiums, basketball arenas, hockey arenas, and NFL stadiums, baseball parks, all of those things. So think of the four major sports. Take a city, assume that it's going to be at the very minimum 3 venues. It could potentially be a fourth one. Geographically speaking, just think of any X city. Where would you put those 4 stadiums or 3 stadiums?
Well, I think your hockey/basketball arena, it makes sense to have it, downtown or close to it. I think, is it T-Mobile now? It's not Sprint Center anymore. I think that's in a perfect location. For baseball, I don't know. I've lived in Chicago, so I've seen where Wrigley Field is located. Wrigley Field's not right downtown, but it's still in the city. And I have been to the old Busch Stadium, which, I thought was, it is located downtown, and I actually didn't find anything, I don't know, weird about it. I guess it all depends on, with baseball, I think it's getting harder and harder to try and draw like a consistent fan base right now, especially with the way the game's going. So trying to bring in some other attraction, or at least enticing thing is, hey, this is located only, 5 blocks away from famous Arthur Bryant's, or it's only located 5 blocks away from the Kauffman Center. I think, in the Royals case right now, yeah, if they win, people will come. But for a small market team like them, it's hard to sustain that type of success and to keep drawing those type of crowds in the location where, Kauffman is. I mean, it's a good 20 minutes east of downtown. It is on I-70, but it's not close to the city. So for me, I would probably put the baseball stadium in the city as well. And then with the football stadium, I mean, this is more biased on my part, just because, I grew up with tailgating outside of Arrowhead, but I think that would probably be something more rural, just because, the NFL is only 8 games a year. I think people are probably more likely to invest in season tickets because of the popularity and because there's less games. But then also, a lot of people do like to make an event of the entire day, and they like to tailgate. So I don't think putting a football stadium in a place downtown where you might not have as much parking lot space to tailgate would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, no, I'm 1,000% in line. And obviously I don't think we've ever talked about this before.
Mm.
We've known each other for a long time. We've talked about a lot of things, but I don't think we've ever really gotten into this. And I completely agree with you. Football is an event, and a lot of that's based on, forget about how many home and away games you have. There's 16 regular season games per team. It's 17 weeks. Well, now it's 17 and 18, but that's that's the shortest season of any of them.
And most of
With
the time it's on the weekend. So, I
exactly,
mean, yeah.
and it's always on the weekend. or Monday, which is a weekend you make,
Mhm.
or Thursday, which is you start your weekend early. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't
Take
have
Friday
games
off.
on
Yeah.
Wednesday night. You don't have games on Tuesday night. NBA and NHL, those are 82 game seasons. And I mean, I've lived next to arenas for all these places, and I mean, it's an experience and it's an event to go to an NBA or an NHL game. But one thing that I'll point out as a difference is, I mean, LeBron James is the attraction in NBA, and he's been a durable player over his career, but you still have him and other superstars that just take a night off, and that's just the thing. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't have NFL players just take a day off, and you don't have people calling into radio shows going, I bought these tickets and I tried to take my son to see blah, blah, blah. No, I mean, that just doesn't happen. I mean, they're either hurt or they're
No.
not. And that's not me throwing any shade at hockey and basketball players for taking some rest, because 82 games is a long season.
They do the
With
same thing in baseball, and they've done it in baseball for
exactly,
several decades.
which is why Cal
Yeah.
Ripken was an actual record and something to pay attention to.
Yes.
But that's
Yeah.
162 games, and it's like there's only so many times you can get up for fanfare. And I mean, go to a playoff baseball game versus a regular season game that's not the first series of the season, and it's just hey everybody, welcome to the ballpark. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Season ticket holder is gonna throw the first pitch out, and they have some like random person come out and throw out the first pitch. I mean, with the
Skip it
NFL
completely.
or
Yeah.
NASCAR for that matter, I mean, they have a concert before every single one of these because it's just a smaller event, and it's smaller. And the NFL has done a great job of creating demand, low supply and high demand. So
Yep.
I agree with you. It's an event and you need to have space. And I think the most unfortunate football stadiums are the ones that are downtown, because you take some of that
Yeah.
away, and you're going to some like random ass bar in some downtown city. I've been to a Colts game. It's fun before there, but it's not like tailgating at Arrowhead, and it's just not. um
Yeah.
then you go to Lambeau, and it's a small town that has nothing going on during the week, and then suddenly they're hosting a nationally televised game, and it's just crazy. It's just a level of fanfare that's just there. But with baseball, I think you have to be something that fits into people's night, and you have
Yeah.
to be accommodating that you can walk in the second and third inning, because that's just how you do it.
Well, and you think about, the groups that tailgate together. I mean, in baseball, I think your season ticket holders are probably smaller groups. It's probably just maybe 2 to 4 people at the most, maybe,
Sure.
that would go to, it could be 20, 40, or 82 game or 81 games. But, in football, I mean, you've got, even if you're not season ticket holders with somebody, you probably have a group of people, like various groups of people are season ticket holders that like to tailgate together. But yeah, I can't count how many times I've gone to Kaufman at 6:45, and the only thing I could care about is hearing, the opening lineup and seeing the first pitch. And I don't have, the only times I've tailgated at Kaufman is if I went with a big group of people. Like it's
Yep.
and that is very rare.
Well, exactly. And I mean, there's three stadiums that I think of when you think of tailgating for a baseball game. um I'll be fair and add a fourth one. The White Sox have a good parking lot that's easy
They
to get
do.
to. But realistically speaking, when you're thinking of tailgating, it's the Phillies, the Brewers, and the Royals. And I mean, I've been all over the country. I mean, those are the places to tailgate. And I mean, I think the Brewers put everybody to shame. The Royals are probably the second best. It's really kind of funny watching the Phillies fans talk about how good they are at tailgating. It's hilarious, actually, being from the Midwest. But realistically speaking, the D2 college football stadium that I went to when I was going to college at Fort Hays State tailgated as well as baseball stadiums.
Yeah, mine too. And mine was a highly successful football program.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, I'm sure yours blows
Yeah.
away every football or every baseball stadium, and probably some D1s going to Northwest Missouri State, which those bastards just won like what, the fourth out of five in NCAA Division II basketball titles.
Yeah, they won their third straight. It's not truly because of the COVID year, but yeah, they won the last three,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Division II basketball titles.
It's like 4 out of 5. So yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Insane.
Bearcats have some athletic departments going on, and I don't know. Apparently, they put
Yeah.
out people that know stuff too. So, way to go, Northwest Missouri State. but but yeah, I mean, so I I don't know. My reaction is I don't know why money was spent on renovating Kauffman. I think that stadium should have been moved downtown a long time ago, or to someplace more in an urban area. And the whole thing needs to be in a place that's accessible. I mean, best example, I don't know if you've ever been to Tampa, and if you've ever driven to St. Petersburg, where the Rays Stadium is, but that place is like the most difficult spot in
Oh
the world
yeah.
to get to. And all the locals know it. And the situation they put themselves into is you have Tampa and St. Petersburg, and stuff like this drives me nuts because I cannot stand the like municipality nationalism, for lack of better terminology, acting like that's two different cities. It's not. It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
the dumbest thing in the world. I say stuff like this all the time. My wife gets pissed at me all the time because I say that the Bay Area is a city. Oakland is the crappy part. San Jose is the blue collar part, and San Francisco is the posh part. That's one city. Just stop it. Quit acting like that's three different geographical places. They have three airports, which is irrelevant. Pick the one that's cheapest, fly into it. It's a bitch to drive around the entire area. Just get it done. Go do what you're gonna do. And I really don't care what anybody that lives in the middle part of California thinks about that comment. It's true. It's true in my mind. Um, Dallas and Fort Worth, I guess, is kind of two different cities. Minneapolis and St. Paul are kind of two different cities. You're just people that couldn't figure out how to make an interstate system work. But it's a big metro area.
Mm.
Everybody that lives in those areas does stuff in both of them. So just stop it. Just stop it. Just figure it out. Like the idea of the Oakland A's not being able to build a stadium in San Jose because of TV rights is the most ridiculous thing in the world to me. And
It is.
I really think that entire, megaplex deserves to lose that team to Oakland or to Las Vegas, similar to the Raiders. It's just get out of your own way. And that's kind of where I was with the Royals. It's like, that it's a pain to get out to the Truman Sports Complex. There's something awesome about sitting in line at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting ready to tailgate for a noon Chiefs game. It's all part of the experience. There's nothing fun or interesting about that for a Royals game. And after the game, you have nothing to do but sit in traffic and go home. I mean, what are you going to do after that? I mean, you're a mile and a half away from a grocery store if you need to stop and pick up beer before you walk in the parking lot. It's ridiculous.
You
You
know,
have
guys,
these
a
horrible,
Taco Bell and a Denny's. That's about it over
yeah,
there.
you have
Really.
horrible hotels and even worse fast food restaurants and a gas station. I mean, it's
Yeah.
dumb. The only place, and I truly believe this, that gets out of a highly populated area that does this even remotely close to correctly is Philadelphia. And they have their basketball hockey arena, their football stadium, and their baseball park all in one spot. There's a train that goes to it, but they have a thing called Xfinity Live, which is a pre and post game party. You can go and pay stadium prices for a beer, but you're still out there and it's exciting. And they make this entire like complex. That is the only place that does that correctly. And when you're talking about things that aren't that, I mean, you mentioned the Chicago one. So yeah, neither the Cubs or the White Sox play downtown, but there's one $3 subway line that runs between the two of them that you can get to
Yeah.
from anywhere in the city. And
Yep.
Wrigleyville is awesome. That is elite level after game, partying and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
The White Sox stadium has nothing around it, but the stadium's cool and the tickets are cheap. So,
Well, yeah, and you can stay. I mean, we've stayed in the loop to go
mhm.
down to whatever it's called now, U.S. Cellular. And it's like it's about a 10 to 15 minute L ride, down the
Yeah,
red line. It's
yeah,
not bad at all.
exactly. Just get
Yeah.
off 3 stops before to have your pregame and your food.
Yep. Pretty much.
Fine. Another place that I think has something going on as the Brewers. Um, I
I
have,
really think they, they kind of have it right in the middle of where Kaufman and let's say a downtown stadium is, because they're close enough to the city.
yeah,
I mean, it's less than 10 minutes away, and there's plenty of stuff around, um,
but more than anything,
in that part of Milwaukee. So yeah,
there are 200 bars that
yep,
have a free shuttle to Miller
yep,
Park, and you
there
can
are.
drink a beer in a plastic cup on the way in the shuttle, and I can walk the three of them from my house.
Hmm.
That works. I mean, you have a secondary plan, but it's just, expecting people to drive way out of their way like the Braves or like
Yeah,
the Tampa Bay Rays. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, you know, I don't want to see Truman Sports Complex lose anything by any means, but the Royals should be playing downtown. They just should. They just should. I mean,
and I think they will. I
yeah,
think that was part of the attraction for John Sherman and his,
yeah,
his ownership group. And I think they're going to be very motivated to do it.
yep. So my ideal situation for the Chiefs is they figure out a way to put a retractable roof that doesn't take away from the soul of Arrowhead, that can be open at any time that it needs to. And I understand I'm possibly chasing a unicorn, but I would love to have Arrowhead to the point where you could put a roof on top of it when you needed to, and you can make it be exactly what it is when you don't, and kind of go from there. But I would rather have a Super Bowl there and be able to host Final Fours and stuff like that, and just have Kansas City be that spot that's talked about when those things happen,
Mhm.
and possibly give a little bit of that away. That's where I'm at. I think it would be great for him to stay in the Truman Sports Complex. I think that's cool. But at the same time, I gotta say, I'm a Kansas guy. Throw that shit out by the legends. Put it right on the west
Yeah.
side of the racetrack and share the parking lot. And
Yeah. Play over
you
by
know,
the T-Bones and Sporting Kansas City. Yeah.
well, they're the Monarchs now.
Really
Yeah, the
nice.
T-Bones rebranded themselves the Monarchs. Yeah, this is like a
I
year
like
ago.
that.
Yeah, so it's awesome.
Okay.
But no, I mean, I think that Legends area is great. Throw that out there,
Mhm.
and you keep every single bit of the tailgating and all the spirit after everybody's mad for a year. And you would have a lot of people, rage about that. And I can make every argument about why I like Kansas more than Missouri, because that's the place I grew up and everything. But it's just, this needs to be taken seriously. And the Truman Sports Complex area, whoever governs all that, Jackson can, I don't know. I don't care about the politics of stuff like this. And I'll be the first to say, like, the taxes that I enjoy paying are the ones that put nice stadiums for teams that I like.
Mhm.
So you'll never hear me complaining about the 5 county tax for the Brewers stadium. It's just, yeah, send me a bill and I'll give you $100 bill for it.
Or for
Like,
Pfizer form.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
that stuff doesn't bother me. I don't get upset about people that are bothered by it, thinking that that's not what the taxpayers are supposed to do. But I'm a taxpayer, and I want to pay for that. It's fine.
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, I really think this is all much ado about nothing. I really don't think that either of those teams are, going to do anything that's going to, really throw anything off. But yeah, so
I think that they will play out the release. I mean, this is not something that's going to happen this decade. So, just get used to the topic. It's going to come up periodically. Um, Everyone's entitled to their opinion by
yep.
all means, but it's definitely not going to go away.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And again, I don't think that the Chiefs are going to go and do wrong by the city by any means. So,
Oh,
hope to be proven right in that scenario. So, and really playing out most of your lease and giving the Truman Sports Complex area every opportunity to retain what they have within reason, I think is the way to go.
mhm.
So, all right.
Yeah.
So moving along, not get too long-winded. We figure out ways to drag any of these topics out. I don't think we can get out of here without talking about the basketball tournament. So
Yeah.
how are you enjoying watching the Jayhawks?
Oh, it's been interesting. At least the second round through the Sweet 16 was, the Creighton and Providence games were definitely hard on the eyes, but they grinded them out. But I mean, the second half of the game against Miami, I think, is the best half of basketball I've seen any Kansas team play in a very long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was one of those, the whole first half, I just thought, okay, hopefully they can grind out some close win at the end, or this is going to be another Elite Eight letdown. But they just came out of the locker room in the second half and just dropped a can of whoop ass.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where, I'm sitting there in the United Center watching that, and it was like halfway through the second half, and I look at the guy that was sitting next to him, like, I don't think Miami scored more than 10 or 15 points this entire half, and it was just the defense locked down. It was just over. And
47-15. That was the difference in the second half.
yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, definitely fun to watch. So what do you think of their chances against Villanova?
I think they're good, but Villanova's so salty. This is a team. It's not like your Villanovas that you've seen the last 5 years, where you've just got, I would say, a lot of guard play, like dynamic guard play, especially from the outside. I think, especially given the short rotation that Jay Wright's played this year, and then you've got, um, I'm gonna forget the kid's name. I think it's Moore. Ended up popping his Achilles in that last game. And they've already been doing this. I mean, if you watch them play against Houston, and they were saying this constantly, Villanova, I think, averages one of the longest, like, seconds per possession in the nation. So I definitely see them trying to limit the amount of possessions in this game and really try and drag it out and slow it down. It's just going to come down to, you know, offensive efficiency and not getting too anxious. And I think Kansas should win this game, and the opportunity is there. But I mean, it's kind of hard to just think that Jay Wright and Villanova are just going to just be walked over for sure.
Yeah, I guess my optimism is, like you said, Villanova has a stout offensive team, and Kansas, when they're doing what they're supposed to, does stuff like hold Miami to 15 points in the second half. So,
Mm.
you have something Villanova is really good at versus something Kansas is really good at. And I've never gotten the impression that Kansas has to possess the ball the entire game and just, run and gun. It's not like some of the Roy Williams teams of the 90s where they're going
No,
to
it's
own
not.
every inch of the court and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think this fits out well. My prediction is next week we're going to be talking about how Kansas and Duke played in a final again, and this time it went our favor. So
I hope so. I hope so.
that's where I'm at.
I think this Kansas team can play in so many different ways.
Yep.
So I'm not as worried about, a team like Villanova, whereas I might have been with other teams in the past. And yeah, this is a team that's very good at knowing when to run and knowing when not to. So I do feel confident going to Saturday.
And player of the tournament so far, Remy Martin, is
Yeah.
finally the dude we were supposed to be getting all season, which is fine.
Well, and a
Take the
guy
whole
like
season off. You're
him,
going to play like this now.
well, and a guy like him allows you to play low possession games because he can create his own shot with the shot clock going
Yep.
down. So it really gives him a big advantage there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So final takes. What do you got? I'm guessing that's something to do with your background.
Oh yeah. So this is one of my favorite songs by the Foo Fighters. It's called "A Cold Day in the Sun." Um, just to kind of read off some of the lyrics here. You know, you're so afraid that you're the only one. You're the only one. You know, don't be afraid because you're not the only one. You're not the only one I know. It's your cold day in the sun. Um, this song is on the In Your Honor record, if you're familiar with it, on the second disc, which is very acoustic and slow. But this song was actually written and sung by the Foo Fighters drummer, the late Taylor Hawkins. If you haven't seen any of the live versions of it, I suggest YouTubing it. There's a brilliant one on when they were on Letterman, but uh, you know, I have a heavy heart right now just because, I mean, he's only 50 years old, and we lost Taylor Hawkins last weekend, and you know, I don't know, just really just the impact of what he has on the band, and I think on music. I mean, I always said that if you're the drummer on the same band as Dave Grohl, you have to be really damn good, because Dave Grohl, in his own respect, is one of the best of all time, and he was certainly that. And from what I heard, he was a really good dude, really approachable dude. And I mean, it's just amazing the music that the Foo Fighters have come out with. And I always say, like, they're one of the few rock bands that still exist, but they also don't sound like they're dated in any way. I mean, they continue to put out music, I think, that sounds, in a way current, but also it still maintains their style. But a lot of that was because of Taylor. I mean, he was the true heartbeat of the band. And it's just, it was a shocking loss when I heard it on Saturday morning. And yeah, I'm gonna miss seeing him be in the band. Gonna miss the band a lot. It was tough. It's just 50 years is just way too young.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Foo Fighters, timely and timeless, and the only other guy that I can think of, entity that's done something close to what they've done is, if you think of Paul McCartney, the Beatles, Wings, his solo stuff. It's like it's what music supposed to sound like anytime he puts
Mhm.
it out, and regardless if you're listening to the Foo Fighters' first self-titled album or the newest stuff they put out, it's just it's good. So
Which the self-titled album is just Dave Grohl, by the way. That's literally a solo album by Dave Grohl.
yeah, yeah. So no, it's good stuff. Love the Foo Fighters, and I'm right there with you. No, so my final take. I will mention that I saw stuff about the Oscars for the first time in about 10 or 15 years, because I don't care about the Oscars, but cheers to Will Smith for making that something notable. But that being said, where I'm really going with this is hearing the thing about Bruce Willis. And he was diagnosed with what's it called? Aphasia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically he can't focus anymore, which means that he can't act and get into character. That's horrible. Um, so we're in a situation where, I mean, we just suddenly lost the drummer from the Foo Fighters. I feel like we're gonna have a slow, public loss of Bruce Willis, which sucks. And I mean, so the whole thing was just as sudden, and that we're not going to get any more movies from him. So,
Yeah.
not to say that all the diehards are great by any means, but I wanted Die Hard 6. I want to see what you do with the
I was
character and
telling a
stuff
friend of
like
mine
that.
today, he looks like he could still do a Die Hard movie. And he's 67 years old and he
And he
still
and, and,
looks
and he
like he could
and,
do
and
it.
he
Yeah.
could, he looks at it. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought A Good Day to Die Hard was just a really stupid movie, but I went and saw it on Valentine's Day, and it was my wife's idea. Um, and it was just cool that he did it and everything. But yeah, that sucks that he's just done, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for Bruce Willis to not be an action star anymore. So
Yeah, there's a really good article on NPR about him and just aphasia in general, and
yeah.
where it comes from. And if you have time, you're interested about it, I suggest reading it up on NPR.
Yep. Didn't know anything about what he's going through, and didn't know anything about what Jada Pinkett was going through before, all
Yeah.
that stuff. So I, hope the best for both of those people and everything. So yeah.
Same here.
But anyway, well, good night, Chiefs Kingdom. We'll be back next week and hopefully have something more interesting to talk about than jumping the gun on the draft or where stadium should be located.
Yeah. No more DK Metcalf talk.
But I bet we'll talk another hour. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, good night, Chiefs Kingdom.
Chiefs.